Aloha, and welcome to In the Neighborhood, a channel dedicated to Neighborhood Place of Puna's work and philosophy as a nonprofit drug service provider. I'm Paul Norman, I'm the executive director. And with January 30th just around the corner, I wanted to take a moment to talk to you about American civil rights activist Fred Korematsu. As you may recall, immediately after the bombing of Pearl Harbor in December of 1941, the US government quickly began to round up and detain, without trials, without hearings, without any evidence, American citizens of Japanese ancestry. And by 1945, about 120,000, mostly Americans, had been um, detained in what Franklin Roosevelt called concentration camps, and what we kind of euphemistically call um, internment camps. So Fred Korematsu um, challenged the orders that called for the detainment of of American citizens of Japanese descent. Became a fugitive from the law, and after his arrest, um, his court went all the way through the court system to the Supreme Court. His case went to the Supreme Court, and in 1944, the Supreme Court ruled against him, basically upholding the United States' right um, to intern American citizens, to intern our own citizens. However, since that time, Fred Korematsu has really become the symbol for the wrongs done to our own citizens, and in particular to the wrongs done to Americans of Japanese heritage. Later in life, Fred Korematsu was consistently was very outspoken when he felt that the United States was on the verge of making the same mistakes that they had made after Pearl Harbor. I think under President Jimmy Carter created a commission to look into the internment of these American citizens, and that commission basically stated that American citizens of Japanese descent did not pose an existential threat to the United States, to their safety, and that the arrest and detention was simply race prejudice, war hysteria, and a failure of political leadership. So, you know, so why is this important to Neighborhood Place of Puna? And one of the things we need to think about is that what happened after Pearl Harbor didn't just come out of nowhere. That prejudice, that racism, that bigotry against those Americans, against Americans of Japanese ancestry, that was there already. It's just Pearl Harbor made it acceptable, right? So that prejudice that was in our culture just came to the surface after Pearl Harbor. And really, when we talk about this prejudice, this racism, I mean, really, in its simplest form, it's fear of the others. It's fear of those who are different from us. It's fear of those who look different from us, who dress differently from us, who act differently from us, who speak differently from us, who believe differently from us. And none of us are exempt. No matter how much we want to deny it, in our hearts, we all have some fear of the other. And for us, for Neighborhood Place of Puna, as a service provider, we see this prejudice every day. I mean, of course, we see the racism. but we also see the prejudice against the poor and the homeless. And notice um, I didn't say individuals who are poor or individuals who are struggling to endure homelessness. And I didn't say that because we as a society have a blanket impersonal term, um, a word um, that we use that allows us to overlook the humanity of this group of individuals. Um, it is a kind of a class designation, and because it allows us to overlook their humanity, to overlook their individually, in some ways, when we refer to the poor or the homeless, um, we are making a statement about their humanity and the fact that they are less than human, that they are not worthy of being counted as individuals. And you notice you'll see this in our language. We talk about the problem of the poor or the problem of homelessness. And we don't talk about an individual struggling in a particular situation. So, we'll ask ourselves, well, why don't the poor get a job? Or why are the poor using all our tax dollars? Or, the homeless are destroying the business in an area. I mean, I hear this all the time. I hear it from our politicians. I hear it from our business leaders. There's just we think that these individuals experiencing homelessness, we think these individuals who experience more are all the same, and they're not. Because each individual, whether they're living on the street, whether they're working 3 jobs to try and make ends meet, they have a story. They have their gifts, they have their challenges, but they are individuals. And surprisingly, when you actually get down to encounter them, when you one-on-one, you may find out that they're quite different than what you expected. Maybe not, but it's possible. And probably more likely that once you begin to encounter them one-on-one and learn about them, that you'll find that they are not exactly what you expected. And you know, one of the things that I we discovered this past year, because we had recently opened an emergency shelter. One of the things we discovered was that 1/4 of the parents that came through our emergency shelter, so it's a family shelter for families with young children. So 1/3 of those parents, sorry, 1/4 of the parents in the households we served last year, in the households that took shelter at our emergency shelter, 1/4 of those households had parents who came out of the foster care system. So imagine that. Imagine the hell that those parents must have endured as children. Imagine how difficult their life must have been. Because, contrary to popular belief, child welfare or child protective services doesn't just automatically remove children. They only remove children when the children are at imminent risk of harm. So by the time a child gets removed, unless it's removed as an infant, they've gone through a lot of difficulty. They've had a lot of traumatic experiences. And then they get removed from their parents and put into foster care. And bless the hearts of all the foster care parents, but foster care are not parents. And so when a child graduates from foster care, they usually don't have a lot of supports. So imagine being a new parent having come out of an abusive, neglectful family. Or imagine trying to get and hold a job when you never had parents or you don't have parents who can help you learn what you need to do to be a good employee. Or imagine trying to get a place to live, to rent an apartment for the first time, when you don't have parents who have taught you how to be a tenant, how to pay rent on time, how to maintain your apartment, what's expected when you rent an apartment. Imagine how difficult that is, um, for you as an adult, right? And that's just one example. And for me, I learned this because my job gives me the great opportunity to meet these families and to learn about their difficulties and to learn about their challenges. And in that way, continually uh, challenge my own beliefs, my own prejudice, my own biases, right? Because that's the key. If we really want to overcome prejudice, if we want to reduce the chance that we have another time in which prejudice and racism boils over, and we have mass incarceration or violence or whatever it is against a particular group of people, we need to daily work on ourselves. We need to daily reach out of our comfort zone and try to encounter or learn about the other. And that's hard. And it's an unending task. We are a work of progress. Our hearts are a work in progress. And our goal throughout life is to soften and open our hearts more and more. And that's why I do the work I do. And I'm sure that's why many of the people who work at Neighborhood Place of Puna, many of the amazing staff we have, do the work that they do because they recognize that, um, together, working together, that we can create a community in which every child grows up in a safe, stable, and nurturing home. That working together, we can overcome our own prejudice, our own hates, and make the world a better place. So thank you for listening, for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and follow for more updates from Neighborhood Place of Puna. And you can also visit us at neighborhoodplace.org. I wish you all the best. Aloha.